All nice on time again. Good to see you all. Hope you had a good week. Last week, of course, we were looking at coding in 10.10. We sort of supplemented the first week that we did was looking at Agile and Scrum. So we've already learned a couple of the real key concepts in the world of technology, what kinds of things that you'll be doing, what kind of roles you'd expect to be doing, and the way in which you'll be working as well. So I think that this leads really nicely into today's session, which is less about the sort of hands-on tech side, but actually learning about really where you can showcase your skills, some of the skills that we've already developed, in an interview situation, of course. I know many of you in the room here are final year students or second year students who will be looking at your options after university. And all of the employers who are supporting DigitalLEAP will often recruit in a fairly similar way in terms of the kinds of things that they're really looking for and the kind of skills that they want you to show. So I've got Maria here today with us. You'll recognise Maria from the launch event, who's fantastic. She'll be able to talk to you about some of the main recruitment methods that you will come across in the digital industry and how you can showcase those skills again to really impress. And then absolutely delighted again to have Jill and Jenny from NHS Digital, and they're going to talk specifically about what kind of skills they like to look for when they recruit, particularly around assessment centres and interviews and applications and that kind of thing as well. So there's going to be plenty of activities for you to do as part of the session today. And hopefully by the end of this session you'll really have a good sense of what kinds of things you'll need to start thinking about practicing over the next couple of months, weeks, to get yourself in a good position for an interview in the sector. It's going to hopefully really sort of lead on nicely to next week, where we're going to do a full-on session hosted by Sky Bet of a mock assessment, and they'll show you what it's really like to do a full assessment essentially. And then the final week, of course, so we're on the 4th of 6 sessions now, we're going to do a hackathon. So you'll get to sort of use all of the skills that you've had throughout the whole programme to actually solve a problem using technology with FDM. So I really hope that, as I say, you'll get a good sense of what's expected of you and what you can bring to the party really when you go for a job in the industry. So I'm going to hand over now to Maria, who's going to talk to you a bit more about recruitment methods. And thanks again for coming. Good to see you all.
Hiya, it's lovely to see you all again. I can't believe week 4. It's gone really fast. So today, what we want to get out of this session is to help you to really be able to capitalise on this experience. So we don't want you to go away after session 6 and be like, well, that was a pleasant way to spend a good 6 weeks on a Monday evening. We want this to be impactful for your career. It should be. We stressed in that very first session that this was a great way to give yourself that all-important USP when applying for jobs. So we're really going to focus on, okay, well, what is it that employers are looking for, and how can we really capitalise on this experience? So, into the session in a nutshell, to provide an overview of some of the most common recruitment methods used by student and graduate recruiters. So, we don't want you to be in a situation in a few months' time, or maybe in a year's time, depending on where you're at currently, going for a job, and then a recruiter says, right, next week we're inviting you to take part in this as part of the recruitment process, and you think, I have no idea what that is, I feel a bit underprepared, how can I get extra support? We want you to be on the front step with things. I'm going to provide you with an overview of what employers want students and graduates to demonstrate during the recruitment process, and I know our colleagues from NHS Digital will be going into that in further detail with you. And we're going to also provide you my session the opportunity to enhance your interview techniques, so you're going to be giving it a go. So, fundamentally, what do employers want to know? Well, 3 things. It's not as scary as you might think. It seems a bit obvious, but I want you to ask yourself the question, are you actually showing these things to employers when you apply? So if you've ever made a job application, think about how you've applied. So number 1, can you do the job? Obvious, right? Surely an employer would want to know you can do the job you're applying to. But how many of us, I'll be honest, have sent the same CV or a very, very, very similar version of an application to multiple employers? So hands up if you've ever done that before. Okay. Yeah, you'll do it. So we're not actually showing we can do the job. We can show that we can do a job. I am applying for a job. Because if you send the same CV to multiple employers, or the very, very, very lightly edited version of an application form, you're not telling them you can do the job in question, you're just applying for a job, okay? Because if you were to tailor your CV or tailor your application to each and every job application you make, it will look very different, potentially. Because to show that you can do the job in question, so that you meet the criteria on that particular person specification, it will have to be different. You will have to adapt each and every time. Secondly, are you passionate about this area of work? So we're going to be looking at that a little bit more in a second, about what it means to be passionate and why employers are so interested in hiring people who can show that they're passionate about their area of work. And how are you going to fit in with the business? So this is it's a two-way thing, fitting in with the business. Why do you think it's so important to fit in with the business? Why do you think employers value that so highly? Have you got any ideas? Yeah.
Because if you don't fit in with their culture, you're not going to enjoy being there, and they're not going to enjoy having you there. So
Yeah, that's it. So it's as much a benefit for you to do your research on the companies that you are applying to meet with companies on campus, to take advantage of opportunities to go on site, find out, very much like you said, what's the culture like? Do I see myself here? Am I going to fit in here? What am I like? What type of work do I enjoy? Do I like, something that's very structured? Do I like, rules, policies, procedures? Therefore, am I actually going to fit into that organisation that's a little bit chaotic? Maybe not. So that's why it's really important to do your research to determine if you fit, because it's important to employers, but it should also be very important to you. So, passionate. Why do we think employers are looking for people who are passionate about what they do? Yeah.
If you feel passionate about what you're doing, you're going to put a lot more effort into it than if you're half-hearting it.
Yeah. Has anyone worked in a team before where you've had team members that are clearly not passionate about what they're doing and clearly don't want to be there? Yeah, hands up. Keep your hands up if you found that hard work. Yes. Okay, we don't want to be working with people who don't want to be there, who aren't that sure about why they're being there, who just are there just to get a paycheck and leave at the end of the day. So 5 o'clock comes, right, I'm off. See you later. You want people who are excited about what they're doing because it is infectious. People who are excited and passionate about what they do have lots of ideas. They want to go above and beyond. And that is why employers want to hire people who are passionate about what they do. So if you are thinking of applying for jobs in digital, how can you show that you're passionate? Any ideas about the digital sector, about developing in this area? Yeah.
Just by showing that you're doing things in your free time to enhance your skills and knowledge in that area.
Yeah, has anyone got any ideas on what that might involve? Yes! Yes! This is a fabulous way to show that you are passionate about working in this area. And that is why at that very first session we were saying how amazing this opportunity is for you. Because this is a surefire way to show how passionate you are about either developing a skill in this area, about entering this industry. It really, really is. You are the ones going above and beyond to develop your skill set. You are the ones hanging around on a Monday of all days, on a Monday evening to develop and enhance your knowledge and skills in this area. Now that I am assuring you is very impressive, and it is something you should be shouting about in the recruitment process, because it really is setting you apart from the crowd. Here's some quotes from various people about why passion about what you do is so important. So at the end of the day, I can train anyone to do any job, but I can't train you to love the job. Pleasure in the job plus perfection in the work. So a lot of graduate recruiters we speak to say actually the knowledge base isn't as essential because we can train a lot. A lot of graduate programs involve a large element of training and professional development because employers know that you will need that as graduates and they're happy to put that training in, but what they can't train you to do is be passionate. They can't train you to be enthusiastic. So that's why a lot of employers, and we heard that in the first panel session, a lot of employers recruit on attitude. Do you remember going back to that panel session that was a key thing that emerged from that attitude? Well, it taps into this because they can't train for that. Okay, I can deliver all the training courses you need in the practical elements of this job, but I can't train you to be passionate, enthusiastic, a team player, somebody who takes their professional development seriously. How else you can show you're passionate, and this also goes into an area about how you can demonstrate that all-important fit with the company that you are applying to. So you need to take the time to fully understand the role that you are applying for and understand the company. So the amount of times I see students something like, why are you actually applying for that job? I don't actually know why I'm applying for that job, Maria. It's a job, it's a graduate job and I need one. That's why I'm applying. That is not a good reason to apply for a job. You will spend more time in work than you may spend with your own family. When you are applying for a job, you really need to ask yourself, what is it about this job that excites me? Can I see myself doing this job for a good few years to come? You know, what will get me out of bed to do this job on a really miserable, rainy February morning? You know, really start to ask yourself these questions and ask yourself, why am I, not just this job, but why am I applying to this company? So what projects are this company involved with that excite me? What are the values of this company and do they fit into my own value set? So do I identify with this company's values and what this company is doing? And have I got ideas on how I can help this company to grow and develop? Because that is why they are recruiting graduates and students from university, because you are full of ideas and they want to tap into those ideas. So have a look at what the company that you are hoping to apply to is doing and think about, okay, well, what are my ideas on how I could feed into that? Because that is why they want to hire you. It is for your ideas. So don't be afraid to share them. And I know with the NHS, and I'm sure you'll cover this, that values is so important, particularly in public sector organisations. It's like, can you feed into that? It's like,
yeah, so I think it's really important with graduate jobs as well,
Yeah.
because you're not recruiting on experience. You can't ask someone, tell me about when you've done this before, but you can ask for examples of how you've embedded values. So one of ours is people focused. So we always, you know, a lot of our tasks at assessment centre is based on working with people, because I can't ask what would make someone a good web developer if they've not done it before, but we can ask about values, and going back to what you said about attitude as well. If you've got a good attitude, that can make a massive difference.
Yeah, and the organisations, it takes a really long time to develop them. They're not
Yeah.
just words they pull out of a hat. They're based on the people who work there. They take, you know, big surveys, and you know, it's how people who already work there feel. So if you're going to join that team, just imagine that they've already put that thought into them. They're not just words that will be on every single one of them. You know, they're individual to that organisation.
Thank you. So you're taking the time to understand the job, you know exactly why you're applying to it, you understand the business, you understand its values, yeah, they tap into mine, I can demonstrate all that. But how are you going to show what you have to bring to the table? So it's okay, it's all very well and good understanding the job you're applying to, understanding the business, but how many of us fully understand us? So do you understand you? So this feeds very much into your personal brand. So what makes you unique? Okay, what do people say about you when you leave the room? How are you creating that great impression with somebody? How are you standing out from the crowd? What have you got to bring to the table? Because to an employer, you represent a significant investment. So for example, if you are applying for a graduate job that pays £25,000 a year, you can bump that up to over 30k in terms of what it will actually cost an employer to recruit you. Now the next time you submit your CV, you need to ask yourself, is that a 30k document? Does that document tell that, have I spent that time telling that employer what I can bring to the table, why I want to work for their business, why I'm great for this role? Because if you can't be bothered to do that, why on earth should that employer be bothered to give you an interview? You know, it's as simple as that. Would you part with 30k of your cash before, you know, test driving something, making sure that they were the right fit for you? So if somebody came to you for a job, so some of you will go on to establishing your own businesses, if somebody came to you for a job but couldn't be bothered to tell you why they're capable of doing that job in particular, why they want to work for your business, not any business, your business in particular, and what they can do to enhance your business, would you part with that 30k of cash? No. But we expect employers to do that for us. So we need to sometimes think of ourselves being in the recruiter's seat and think about, okay, well what would make me part with this cash? Okay? What would I expect if this was my business? But it is very important to take the time to reflect on what your unique selling point is. So it can be called brand value proposition. It can be, you'll find a lot of literature on this in terms of personal branding. So on my hub we have a lot of resources available to you that I will follow up and send you the links to on personal branding. But it very much taps into this. It is really, really important to know your own value, know your strengths, know what you have to bring to the table and what makes you unique. And that can be sometimes quite difficult for people to get to, so it sometimes takes a little bit of work to get to that point where you're confident in articulating, well, what does make me unique? Why should you hire me as opposed to that person standing next to me in the interview queue? Why should you hire me as opposed to the thousands of other people who have applied to this graduate programme? So spending the time actually thinking about what can I bring to the table will pay dividends, because it helps on that journey to setting yourself out from the crowd. So, on that line, I want you to now think about what skills you've gained during your degree, or during work experience, or extracurricular activities, or potentially all three, and list at least 3 skills and why these might be important to a digital recruiter. So this is along the lines of what you can bring to the table, because it isn't just enough to say, I've got these skills. It's important to think about, okay, well, what does that mean? How can I evidence these? How can I show that these are important and relevant to that particular business? If you take a few minutes now just to reflect on that, and hopefully some of you will be willing to share your answers. Is anyone willing to share anything they've got there? Anyone still? Yeah.
Put leadership as I'm president of the Business Society.
Yeah. And why do you think that might be important to a digital recruiter?
Well, that's good is when it gets to the point of maybe in the future being able to lead a team. Leadership obviously comes with different communication skills, team working skills, everything in decision making, so all kind of you need to do day to day.
Exactly, and with leadership in particular, it doesn't necessarily have to become important later on in your career, because to be a leader, you don't necessarily have to be a manager.
Yeah.
Arguably, and leadership skills are fundamentally important to bring to any task, arguably. So yeah, great, thank you. Anyone else willing to share? Yeah.
My degree is heavily focused around critical thinking, which would help me to consider out-of-the-box ways of thinking or doing things, and it's also been important for me to find the best, most creative, most appropriate response and resolution to something, not just the most convenient.
Fantastic. And that very much feeds into what I said earlier about employers hiring graduates and students for that reason, for new ways of thinking, your critical ability, the ways you can analyse data with a critical mindset, bring new, fresh thought to the table. Brilliant. The importance of being able to not only think of the skills that you've got, but then to be able to think about, okay, well, how do these make me unique? What can I bring to the business is really important, because any of us can say that we've got leadership abilities, that we're strong communicators, that we're strong team players, can't we? I mean, how many of us, either in the intro section to our CV or on our LinkedIn profile, say that we're team players, strong communicators, organised, punctual, self-disciplined? Are there some other words there that might be familiar? Yeah, hands up if you use any of those words on your orange. Yeah, quite a few of them. So, are they effectively meaningless? If we're all saying it, and I guess we all do, how does that make you stand out to an employer if every single CV that employer picks up starts with, I am a passionate, organised person who has the ability to work as part of a team, I'm a strong communicator, and can work towards targets? I said a lot there, but actually not very much, because I've not provided evidence to back it up, and I've not made it explicit why that is actually relevant to that job and that business. So it's okay to use those words, but make sure they have substance behind them. Make sure you're linking them back to why that skill is important to that job and to that business. And make sure you're providing evidence of where you've gained that skill, like you said there, it was gained in your role in that society. Great, fantastic, so you're giving me a bit of context behind it. But always think it's not just good enough to use those buzzwords. There needs to be some substance behind them. You need to link it back to that job, show why it's important in that context. So we're just going to go through a real whistle-stop tour. Now we've actually looked at what employers want, some of the most typical recruitment methods that you might come across. So this hopefully isn't just to prepare for when you exit Leeds Beckett. What we want to do is help to future-proof your career, because you might not experience some of these when you graduate from us, but in 5 years' time, down the line, you might have to go through some of them. So what we're hoping to do is give you a broad overview of some of the most common recruitment methods that we're seeing at the moment. So application forms, CVs, psychometric tests, telephone video interviews, assessment centres, and final interviews. So we're going to do it. We haven't got a lot of time, so it will be a whistle-stop tour. But I do want to stress to you, if you want any extra information about any of the methods that we covered today, the careers team is on hand to support you with all aspects of the recruitment process, to give you advice and to give you practice. Okay. So CVs. This is probably one of the most common questions we get in a career service. What makes a good CV? Maria, is my CV perfect yet? I hate to break it to you, but there is no such thing as a perfect CV. It depends, okay? It has to be targeted at a particular employer or role. So if a student comes to me and says, is my CV good? I'm like, well, what job are you going for? I can't comment on whether it's good or not until I see what job you're going for, because it has to be tailored to that specific job. You can have quite a general one, but arguably when you are applying for a job, it should really be tailored. So that's the first point. It has to be targeted. Okay, so whether that CV is good or not, you need to ask yourself, well, Does it show the employer I can do that job? Okay? Does it show the employer I am passionate about that area of work? They're two fundamental points. Next, is it clear? So recruiters spend a heck of a lot of time ploughing through CV after CV after CV. Now, if it's not clear, they are not going to go searching for something. If there is a key competency that you know that you meet, but it is absolutely buried in a big paragraph of text, it will be missed. Who here has been told to read a chapter in a textbook, but they've thought, oh, I don't really have time for that, so I'll skip to the nice summary at the end that's nicely bullet pointed. So hands up if you've ever done that, where you've been told to read a chapter, but instead we've skipped ahead to the bullet points at the end because we haven't really had time to read it. What do you think employers are doing with your CV? Are they going to read that big, bulky looking chapter, or are they going to skim through it and looking at those bullet points? You need to think of that. How can I get the information across on this CV very clearly? Because they're not going to go rooting for it necessarily, particularly if they get large volumes of applications. I know you're currently going through very large volumes of applications. Is that something you check on?
Absolutely. I mean, for some jobs you're looking at 200 applications, and in some companies, I mean, like ours, it's me and Jenny doing it one day a week. You know, it's you don't have. You'd love to read them all, but you just don't have time. I think the thing we've found hardest in the past is, I think it's the same for other companies, you often ask for a 2-1, and you cannot find anywhere on that CV that says predicted 2-1 or achieved 2-1 or whatever you predicted. So we have to score it as a 0. We can't put it through because it's just not there. And I think that's something that other employers might do as well.
Yeah, and that's why it's really important to get feedback on your CV and application forms, because you might think, oh, that's clear because you know it, and sometimes you get lost in these documents. Whereas somebody else might say, well, look, no, that isn't clear actually. You know, so always get somebody to check through these documents and ask them, is that clear to you? Is that coming across to you? Have you found that quite quickly? Because employers don't spend a long time, so say to give somebody a deadline, right, read this, give yourself a minute, read through it, and then ask them some questions. Does this come across? Does this come across? And if it doesn't, then that gives you a good indication that you might have to make something clearer. Rather than listing each and every single skill that you have, and this is a big temptation, I have to show them everything, I have to show them all my skills, all my knowledge and experience, you really need to make the most relevant skills and experiences stand out. So if you are going for the job of, I don't know, a web developer, for example, do you think that grade D in religious education studies at GCSE is going to matter a great deal to that employer? Yes or no? But the amount of CVs that I see, or probably Jill sees, and Jenny, that will have about a list that long of all your GCSE attainments, you think, are all of them really relevant to this job? You know, there is that temptation to put down every qualification we've ever got, every skill that we've ever obtained, but actually after everything on your CV and application form, you need to ask yourself, so what? So what? Does that tell that employer that helps me to do that job? Okay, again, going back to those original points, can I do the job? Does that grade D in religious education student GCSE show that employer I can do that job? If the answer is no, arguably, does it deserve a place on your CV? Okay, so really pull out what's relevant, because if you're saying it's a maximum of 2 pages long, that isn't a lot of space for you. Particularly you guys who are very proactive and will probably have an awful lot to put on your CVs in a way that is clear to an employer and doesn't look too crowded. And like I said, it's not just good enough to say that I've got these skills, I can list them. You have to provide evidence with it as well, you have to back it up. So it's not just good enough to say I'm a strong communicator. Okay, well, where can I see evidence of that? Okay, they put that in the personal profile at the top, but I can't see any evidence of where they've used communication skills before. Okay, so that is why it's important to really focus on the relevant skills, because it will give you the space to provide that evidence to employers. Make sure that the layout is one that's conducive to somebody reading it quickly and it's clear. And also make sure you shout about your achievements as well. So any awards that you've been given, whether it's, you know, you've been nominated by your peers for being helpful in the class, whatever it is, don't shy away from any awards that you've achieved, okay? It does feel natural sometimes to brag, to shout about what we've done, but if you don't do it in the recruitment process, no one will do it for you. Like Jill and Jenny said, if it's not there, they're not mind readers, they won't know. So don't do yourself a disservice. Make sure you are telling an employer how fabulous you are on these documents. LinkedIn. So I know most of you are on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, if you're not on it, or you feel that you've probably found in some development, I would urge you to do so sooner rather than later, because we are starting to see more and more employers asking students, or actually not just students, any applicant to apply by submitting their LinkedIn profile as opposed to a CV. So if this is the way things are going, and you're not on LinkedIn now, you know, think again in 5-10 years time when you don't have the support of the university around you, what are you going to do? Okay, so use the opportunities while you have them, whilst you are at university. And by the way, you can access the career service up to 5 years after you graduate. So we don't just, you know, we don't forget about you. For 5 years after you graduate, you can access our service for that reason, because recruitment methods are forever changing, they're forever progressing, very much like the digital economy, and we like to stay on top of them, and we like to keep you informed of those methods. But I just wanted to flag that to you, that we are starting to see employers asking people to submit their LinkedIn profile as opposed to their CV, because ultimately your LinkedIn profile is your CV online, and then some, you know. It shows who you're connected with, it gives them examples of work potentially, it shows them recommendations from people who you've worked with. So arguably it is far better than a CV in the eyes of some recruiters. So that's something to be aware of that I wanted to flag to you. Application forms, again, we're seeing that overtake CVs in terms of the number, particularly graduate recruiters. You know, some employers won't even ask for a CV. It's an optional document that you can submit to support your application. Application forms, just a few things to flag. Some can be very time consuming. If there is a job that you're wanting to apply for, do not delay if there is an application form, because it is not something you want to be completing with a few hours to go until the deadline, because they can be very time consuming. I know you're both going through a lot of application forms at the moment. If you've got any advice, I know you're going to be going into this in further detail, but just a little bit of advice at the moment, if you've got any pearls.
Yeah, I think with application forms, I mean, even when I've applied for other jobs as well, sometimes they want a CV and a supporting statement, and then they ask you about other questions as well. So the time thing is absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
To have enough time to do it. Sometimes I've applied for jobs and I've whacked something in last minute. It's like, well, I'm not
You never get a call back on them
No.
ones. You never get a call back on them. They're always. If you really want the job as well, I mean, you're lucky if you see it in time as well. That's always a factor. But if you do see it, start working on it. They've all got a save option, and you can always go back. It's not you have to start it right now. You have to finish it right now. They understand that you need a bit more time, so they're all really built in that way.
Yeah, and something to flag to people, because sometimes it's often an area of worry. Application forms usually come with an equal ops section, which asks you personal information, such as gender, age, ethnicity. That won't go to the person who is making the hiring decision. It isn't something to worry about. It goes to the HR department to make sure that they have a diverse workforce, that they are attracting a diverse range of applicants. The person who is interviewing you and making that hiring decision should never see it. Okay, and I know it can sometimes worry people, but it's quite standard on application forms, so something to be aware of there.
Can I just add into that? Our system isn't actually that advanced, and when you upload a CV, you have to anonymise it yourself. And if you choose not to do that, you're doing yourself no favours, because the recruiting manager will see it, and we don't go through, and we don't have the manpower to reduce names, take off email addresses, you know, what you graduated, that, you mean, obviously you've got to put those things in, but if you can, you know, if there is something you're not wanting us to see, there's reasons we don't see people's names, even as simple as that, you know, you can tell what background they're from potentially. Do it yourselves, take that initiative, it will tell you to do it. So if you know, put in a CV in, it will ask you to do it sometimes, so you should, you know, be aware of how much information you put on there as well.
Because actually, to an employer, your age, your ethnicity, your gender, it shouldn't matter. It's your ability to do the job that should matter. So that's why on your CV, arguably you don't need information such as your nationality, such as your age, your gender, you know, because that's really shouldn't come into the decision-making process for an employer. So I know a lot of people have their date of birth on the CV. What's it doing? It's not telling an employer anything that they need to know because that has no bearing on whether you can do that job or not.
Sometimes you have full birthdays and sometimes you have marital status, and I don't know why that's relevant.
don't
I don't know
know.
if that's quite a historical thing with CVs, but marital status is on some of them. I don't. It's a bit of a waste of space.
So again, it goes back to so what? Does the fact that you are married tell that employer you can do that job? No. So again, everything on your CV or application form do the so what test with. Does it show that I can do that job? Does it show that I'm passionate? So, moving on, so the CAR approach, we recommend this approach when answering questions on an application form or during the interview process. On application forms, you're often asked questions related to the person specification or how you can demonstrate key competencies. In interviews, that's quite similar. So you ask questions usually around the key competencies for the role or the person specification. Now, to develop a well-rounded answer on an application form or in an interview, we highly recommend structuring your answers in this manner. So, providing the context. So, what were you doing? I was the president of the Business Society at Leeds Beckett University, and I had to do X, Y, and Z. I was organising, I wanted to organise an MWA summer ball, which hadn't been, am I right in thinking? I've seen the posters around yourself. Okay, so what action did you take as part of that? So even though it was part of a team, you were part of a society, I'm hiring you. I'm not hiring the society, I'm hiring you. So I want to know what action you took specifically. Okay, and what was the result? That's the bit we always miss out, but that's the juicy bit because you've got me hooked. I'm into your story, I'm suckered in, I want to know all about this event now. Well, what happened? What was the result of your action? Because that helps you to show impact. It helps you to understand that actually through doing X, Y, and Z, it can achieve positive results, or I have learned something from that experience. Because employees think that actually, if you've done that before and you've demonstrated that competency before, the likelihood is that you'll be able to demonstrate it again in my business. And it helps to provide that well-rounded answer. So for example, can you give me an example of a time you worked as part of a team? Yeah, I did a group project at uni, and it was on this, and yeah, it worked really well. It's not going to tell me right what. Okay, but I had to do a group project at university as part of this module, and the key element to that was making sure that all group members received regular communication and updates about where we were with that project. So to help with that, I took the action of setting up a WhatsApp group and made sure that twice a week I fed into that WhatsApp group and got feedback. And as a result of that, all group members took a proactive approach to that project and we received the highest grade in the class. That is a much more rounded answer and it really helps you and it can help overcome interview nerves. If you've got a few of these examples, a few of these car stories that relate to that person's spec that you can go in with and to an interview. And similarly on an application form, if you are developing your answer in that manner, it helps you to showcase not just the skill but the experience that sits behind that skill. So like I said before, it's okay to say you can work in a team, but using this method actually gives you that example to back it up. So we're not just using those loose words, I'm a team player, I'm a strong communicator. No, I'm putting my money where my mouth is and I'm providing you with evidence on how I can meet that criteria. So what I want you to do now is have a practice on how you might use the CAR method in an interview setting. So this is FDM, this is the person spec. FDM Summer Graduate Business Consultant Programme, something that may be of interest to some of you. So I've highlighted in red the key competencies that I want you to focus on today. So in pairs, or if it doesn't work out in pairs, invite a third person into your party. practice some interview questions. So it's up to you what interview question you want to fire at your partner. Okay, so I want you to practice, so just pick one interview question and ask your partner, and then swap, and your partner will be asking you an interview question. So I'll hand out the questions now.
I'm not the one I went to, so just reflex. It's a place called Pareto Law. It's like a recruitment firm in London, and it was like for a placement. And they asked me to like bring prepare a 15-minute presentation for them, like no PowerPoint, just I've done that. Honestly, it was perfect. And I got there, they didn't ask me for the presentation, they were just asking me the most like interesting, like huge questions. And I was there like, this is so uncomfortable.
So is this just a ruthless interview?
Pareto Law. Well, they came in for the networking event, and I went and got a final interview, and thank you, and they asked me to prepare a 15-minute presentation, like no PowerPoint, just take that. And then like on the day they didn't ask me to do it, and then they were asking me like really good questions, so like really questions.
I'm just going to try and shoot You have shown me a lot of drive for this. Honestly, that's what I thought it was. I was like, should I
just drinking wine.
I've missed it.
I'm really relying on my feet on just speaking. I like to have that like I've doing this. Too nice. Tell me about the time you had to make a business decision. What was the outcome? And would you have made the same decision if you had
Sorry, what? Well, this would be a good job. Right here on the spot.
Oh yeah, that's it.
Well, I mean, I'm used to working with kids, so like, yeah, I've done a lot of work with. Should I name drop my foundation and stuff? I work for the Red Blue Foundation. Don't really work that well with people, which obviously means when we're in the I'm sorry, I'm not using professional language as well. Yeah, I don't want to be working on something that we're talking about. There's this kid who basically out of his way to destroy it. What the club was like, basically what we did the first session in. And then there's one kid that go out of his way to destroy it. So, like, obviously this man one guy really did
I wish I could do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm just lucky because like my family was really supportive, so I was constantly involved with looking after them. If you were 8, you could tell me I used to love my other kids because basically when I was in my sister was young, so I used to go to my local and I had this giant tree sculpture to one of it, had a look in it.
This one in Crown Point?
This is do they have a tree sculpture? They trust me, there were little buttons, you can make owls really
I want to make sure you've got as much access to NHS Digital as you need. Did anyone pick question number 2 out of these drafts? Hands up if you picked question number 2. I've had a few, yeah. It's a bit more of a difficult one, right? To put into the context with a bit of a discussion here. So the question is, tell me about your future goals. So how can I demonstrate that using CAR? Did anyone think of a method to do? Yeah? Yeah, do you want to talk it through it?
I just kind of said everything that I want to do that's relevant to the job that I was hoping to apply for, really.
Yeah.
Because that's just what you would do.
That's it, to help with that, because actually the competency is being ambitious with a drive to succeed in the technology industry. So you might want to throw in an example of where you've demonstrated ambition and drive to succeed within the technology industry before. So my ambition is this, and I'm demonstrating that I am committed to that through taking part in the DigitalLEAP programme at Leeds Beckett University, where the action that I took was to do this, and as a result I have enhanced my knowledge in this area and it's allowed me to progress. So try and think of, you can use that CAR method. Again, it's providing that evidence that actually I'm already taking steps to achieve my ambition. I'm demonstrating that I am driven through showing you some of my previous experience. So even if there's a bit of curveball question there, you think, how can I use CAR? Always think of a way to weave in previous examples, previous evidence about how you are developing or how you meet certain key competencies. So, on to the next, video interviews. So we're seeing these more and more throughout the recruitment process. Some video interviews are done via Skype, however, for large graduate recruiters, large digital recruiters, we are finding that more are done using various software, different platforms, and you will be asked to do a pre-recorded interview. Has anyone done a video interview before? Oh, a few of you, how have you found it?
Yeah.
Talks, yeah, they are awkward. they're not the most natural thing, are they really? So do you want to talk me through your experience? What did you have to do? What did it look like?
Well, I've had a few of them, actually, well, a few, like 2, but you know. I've had one where it's been, there's text on the side, and you literally, it counts down 3, 2, 1, you got 60 seconds to record your answer.
Yeah.
And it's mad pressure, and you're like, oh, okay, you know. And I've had another one where it gives you 2 minutes to prepare an answer,
Yeah.
and then you've got 60 seconds to do it.
Yeah. So usually there is a countdown. So usually you're just looking at yourself back. So you're not looking at a person. It plays you back, which is quite unnerving for a few, because none of us particularly like watching ourselves on the screen or hearing ourselves back. And then you have that really intimidating countdown clock, 60 seconds to answer a question. So it's not the most natural of processes to go through, and there isn't a second chance. Once it's done, it's submitted. You don't have the opportunity to go back. Yeah, that's it, that's your chance. What happens is you usually send a link inviting you to take part in that video interview, and you'll have about 48 hours from when you click on that link saying, yes, I want to take part, to actually record your video interview. Treat a video interview or a telephone interview for that matter like you would a face-to-face interview. So dress in the manner that you would dress for an interview. Consider the environment that you're in. So you don't want your housemates, your flatmates walking in halfway through. You don't want background noise to be picked up. Think about the background that you've got, so you don't want any controversial posters that you may have in your bedroom, that's up to you, in the background. So think of all of these things. Check your technology, check that you've got a good signal. If it's a telephone interview, there is nothing worse than interviewing a candidate and the signal continually dropping. It interrupts your flow, you won't be able to perform as well. Check that you've got a strong Wi-Fi signal wherever you are. If you have a video interview coming up and you think, I don't actually have an appropriate environment to conduct this, contact the careers team, we can book you some private space where you will have that appropriate environment to do that video interview. But again, tips on preparing for that, it is all about your research, doing your research, understanding the role, because if you understand the role that you're applying to, understand what you have to bring to the table, go through your application form again, go through your CV again, because with 60 seconds to answer a question, you have to know your stuff very well. There is no way of winging it in a video interview at all, okay? And that is where we see a big drop-off rate. So when recruiters say, right, what stage of the recruitment process did your students fall down on, it's usually the video interview or psychometric tests. And it's lack of prep for both that tends to be the fly in the ointment. So leading on to psychometric tests, has anyone taken part in any psychometric tests? Does anyone not sure what psychometric tests mean? Basically, psychometric tests, they can test various things really. So you've got numerical verbal reasoning tests, so it might be to test actual competencies in those areas. Some psychometric tests feed more into personality testing, to obtain that fit. What we are seeing more and more of is recruiters, particularly in digital, using gamified psychometric tests. So again, they feed into personality tests, they test behaviours, they test personality traits. And it's very difficult to prepare for those tests because you're testing my personality. What? How can I prepare for that? It's really to determine that fit. So if you fail, I don't like to use the word fail for a psychometric test when it's a personality test. It's not a fail. It's actually indicating to you that you might not be the best fit for that business. Does NHS Digital use psychometric tests?
Yeah, we do verbal and numerical reasoning.
So not personality testing?
No, I'm a bit familiar with that one.
Yeah.
We're actually looking at the gamification. We're doing a bit of investigation into how good that is.
Yeah.
It's still quite new.
Yeah. So we see, you've got various recruiters that use gamification, PwC being one of them. I'll just play you a quick video to show you what I mean, what a gamified psychometric test might look like. The intro to this is the one used for Jackie's
Your briefing is about to commence. A series of challenges that will test your brilliance. With With over 1 million lines of code in every Jaguar, only the brightest need apply. Prove yourself, and you can become the software engineer that makes this roar. Prove yourself, and you could be the next in line for greatness.
So that's what students applying to Jaguar Land Rover saw when they were invited to take part in psychometric tests. What would happen after that intro is you'd be invited into the game. Basically, for that one, it's testing your situational judgment. So you're put into different situations, and how do you react to those situations? Within that game as well, there will be numerical tests. There will be verbal reasoning tests. So usually numerical tests, it tends to be, I'd say AS level maths typically. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think it is, but I think you can adjust it to different levels, so you can do different levels of numerical testing. Whether, because if it is for, so we recruit for data analysts, they have a harder test than anyone else. Yeah.
I think a lot of them are based around averages in your like peers groups. So we're saying, you know, with us it's like, let's say 50-60% higher than the average graduate. So you're against your peers, it's not against anyone who'd be well out of the league.
It's worth practicing though. So in any recruitment process, if there are any psychometric tests or situational judgment, numerical reasoning, verbal reasoning, you know, double check what those tests are. We have lots of practice tests available to you. We have, you can practice those types of tests. Specifically with verbal reasoning and numerical tests, they usually follow a similar type of pattern in terms of how the questions are asked. So if you have any of those tests coming up, practice is really key. Like I said, it's in between that and the video interviews where students tend to just drop out of the recruitment process altogether. Don't let that be a barrier. You know, you can absolutely pass those tests, but they do require handling practice to get through them. But the great thing about practicing is that you'll know the structure, you know the type of questions that you'll be asked, you know, you've got a rough idea how they might appear, and that will make it all the easier for you. Sometimes the tests are structured in a way that it is impossible to answer all the questions. You know, you are given a lot of questions, so what an employer is looking for is actually, do you pay close attention to detail, or do you rush through tasks and try and answer every single question, but get a lot of things wrong, or do you answer 90% correctly, but maybe not finish 100%? So this is why it is worth, if there are employers that you wanted to apply to, speak to the graduate recruitment team more about their recruitment process. This is why this type of opportunity to speak to employers like NHS Digital is invaluable, to get their advice on how to pass these different elements of the recruitment process. But arguably, the psychometric test stage is one of the most difficult to pass from what we hear from graduate recruiters. So it's something to spend a lot of time thinking about and practicing if you can. What's being assessed? So particularly when it's being in gamification, they use games because they arguably it's a much more fun and accessible way for employers to assess candidates. So none of us liked having to do maths tests particularly. They try and make it as fun as accessible for people as possible. It's to assess your general mental abilities such as reasoning, problem solving, your verbal and numerical ability. And again, like I said, if there are personality tests, not all organisations use them, because not all organisations agree it's an effective way to screen candidates, but those that do say that they do so to identify whether you'll be a good fit with their organisation, in which case, if that's not deemed to be so, then that's a good thing for you, because you don't want to work for a company where there isn't that good fit, as we've seen before. Tips: read the instructions really, really carefully, particularly if it is something that's gamified that you're not too sure on. Think of the device that you're accessing it on. So think about how it's going to come up on that device, how it's going to appear. Like I said, if it's on your phone, set it to do not disturb. Like I said, sometimes you will only get one shot at these things. Ensure you're in a quiet place so you can really focus, particularly if it's a game or anything for that matter. Again, if you need a quiet place, speak to the careers team who can supply that to you. If you have a disability and you are worried about taking part in a psychometric test, if particularly it's gamified or actually any test for that matter, speak to the recruiter. Do you receive queries from people with disabilities?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's really easy. These systems actually allow you to modify percentages on time and things like and screen resolution and things. So it's easy to do. We just need to know.
Yeah, we would urge you to do so. Don't sit there worrying about it or ruling yourself out, because employers are happy to make adaptations should you need them. They're happy to make reasonable adjustments for you. And moving on, I won't spend too long on assessment centres because you have a whole session on assessment centres coming up. Something to bear in mind, again in digital, because recruiters like to be a little bit out there sometimes, a little bit at the forefront of developments. There can be exercises that are thrown in that you think, what on earth is this about? So what bearing does this have on this job? Sometimes there will be really strange tasks, which you were telling me about one that you observed a few months ago that was really
absolutely, yeah. I've often seen building things, working in teams, trying to create like an innovative solution. I've seen ones where you have to make things float with balloons. It's all those core competencies that we're looking for. It's not always the technical skills. It's very much innovation, working in a team, communication, and really making sure that everyone's playing their part in the process as well, rather than just one or two people taking over.
So when you're in an assessment centre, think about what is being assessed here. So they might throw you some tasks and you think, I have no idea what this even means. I'm not an expert in this area. They're not testing your knowledge usually in a particular area. It's your ability to work as part of a team, if it's a teamwork task. Your ability to manage your time effectively. So right, you've got 20 minutes, I want you to do this. The amount of times that I've sat in on assessment centres and not one person has said, right, let me keep an eye on the time, let me keep us on track. What happens is everyone gets so bogged down in the actual task itself, thinking, we have to come up with a solution for this, we have to come up with a solution, and then the employer suddenly announces you've got 2 minutes to go, and people thinking, we haven't even decided who's going to present. Oh my goodness, we're in a mad panic. Okay, be that person in the assessment centre that is organised. So if you find yourself in an assessment centre in a group task, be the one that says, right, let me keep an eye on the time, how are we going to organise this? Okay? Be that person that reminds them, right guys, we've got 5 minutes to go, we really need to start wrapping this up. Be that person that includes the person in the group that might be a bit quieter. Because you don't have to be the person to shout over everybody, it is not the apprentice. Okay, do not be led to believe that to succeed you have to behave in the manner that you see on The Apprentice. That is not the aim of the game. Think about what makes a strong team player. Not everyone can be a leader in a team, and that is absolutely fine. Don't feel that you've done yourself a disservice if you've not taken that leadership role. There are far more elements involved in making a team effective than just simply being the leader of that team. So there are various exercises, usually different group exercises. There are individual exercises where you might be given an example of a day in the life, so spending a couple of hours in the day in the life of somebody doing the actual job, and you'll be given tasks, you'll be sent emails, you'll have to manage those. Again, think about the key competencies. Is it managing your time effectively? What is this task designed to assess? Really think about that when you're in that situation. At an assessment centre, you are being assessed from the moment you walk in the door. So a lot of recruiters will ask that person on reception how you were when you first walked in. A lot of recruiters will be watching you while you are on your lunch break. So are you just sat there with your head buried in your phone? Or are you actually conversing with the other candidates? If there are other staff in the room, are you actually asking them about their jobs? Are you that person that they want to work with? Does anyone want to work with that person stuck in the phone, not talking to anybody? You are being assessed from the moment you walk in to the moment you leave. So don't let that guard down, don't let that professionalism drop, okay? So be conscious of that throughout the assessment centre process. And usually an assessment centre will end in an interview, whether that's one-to-one or a panel interview. So it is a long day. Again, preparation is absolutely key. Go back to the competencies of the role, because that is what they are assessing through that assessment centre. They are not there to catch you out. There will be some, like I said, some tasks that sometimes seem a little bit weird. It's not done to catch you out. They actually want you to succeed by that stage. You know, they want to be able to pass you at an assessment centre. Sometimes there might be space for everyone to go onto the graduate programme or the job, so don't see the other people there as your competition. You know, work with them, see them as potential colleagues, okay, and treat them accordingly. So, that was a real whistle-stop tour. You are going to hear far more in-depth information from NHS Digital now about specific elements of the recruitment process from an employer perspective. But if you wanted to talk through anything that we've been through today, you want in support in applying for a job or any aspect of your career, please come and see us. Follow us on social media. We're connected with a lot of businesses, so we retweet a lot of opportunities that are out there, a lot of events that are going on external to the university, and we are more than just CVs. As you can see, there's far more to the recruitment process, and we can help you through every single stage. So thank you for your time, and I shall hand over to NHS Digital now.
We just have a round of applause for certainly there from the careers team and myself throughout the whole journey ahead of you. So absolute pleasure to introduce Jill now. It's going to sort of contextualise some of the information and talk a bit more about their process as well.
Thank you. So I really enjoyed that session because it really shows me that I'm doing my job properly. We follow a lot of the same things, so I'm really pleased with what Maria said. We're just going to introduce ourselves. Then we're going to do a bit of an application form exercise. Then I'm going to talk about interviews and assessment centres. And then some of my top tips and some of the annoying things we sometimes see from candidates. We've also got time for questions as well, and feel free to ask anything at the end, and not just about NHS Digital, but just applications in general. So we'll just introduce ourselves. I'm going to have to stop talking at some point because I've lost my voice. My name's Jill Clarkson. I manage the Academy at NHS Digital, so that's all of our grads, apprentices, interns, and placement years as well. I've been with the company for 9 years. My profession is actually project manager. So in the past I've done a lot of IT implementation. I've also managed, so actually setting up the graduate scheme itself was a project. So that's probably been the most interesting one that I've done. Before that I did a few admin jobs. When I joined NHS Digital it was called Connected for Health, but it was still NHS. I didn't have a clue what it did, but I got an admin job there because I knew I wanted to work for the NHS. That was my big thing. And that's something we see a lot with our trainees as well, isn't it? They're not 100% sure what we are, but it's NHS, and that sounds like the right thing to do. So I've just worked my way up since being there. I didn't do a graduate scheme. I did do a degree at Leeds Uni in philosophy, but I then went into a sort of admin route and ended a little bit.
So my name's Jenny Harris. I've worked at NHS Digital for about 5 years. I actually got a temp role there on reception, and one of the things that I was really highly confident on was just my attitude. To be honest, I've got a good attitude and might not be the brightest person all the time, but it meant I got made permanent, got tutored into a new organisation, and I've done a varied number of roles. Office services, I've had to literally paper in the office, then working in resource management, where do people go, and now I'm in the academy. I started my career as a travel agent at 16 doing an apprenticeship, and if all you take away from that is that I have transferable skills, it means nothing, you know, to everyone in this room now, but I can speak to people, I can process things, so you should learn, you know, that's a really good thing to take away from it. But my job at the moment is to support Jill and another manager in the team, and really just learn everybody's name on the scheme. Really, that is my biggest job, and make sure they have someone to speak to and buffer Jill a little bit, so that, you know, if they have any questions, any queries, make sure they've got the training that they need and stuff like that. So it's a really nice job.
So I talked about this at the introduction session, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. But just to remind you, we look after all of the data and information systems for the NHS, and that includes sort of bigger systems. It's also the design, the website, and lots of fun stuff that goes along with that. So these might be some of the things we've seen before. So these are the products that we've got. So anytime you make an online appointment with your GP, that's us sat behind it. Ambulance services, accessing patient records, that all comes from projects that we do. We have graduates working on all of these projects as well. Following on from Maria's presentation, I was going to focus on two main things. So looking at application forms, and also the assessment centre and interview and some tips around those. So, I'd like you all to do a team exercise. So if we could do groups of 4 or 5, if that works out on your tables, give or take. And these are 2 questions that we ask. It's not secret. If you log on and apply for any of our graduate jobs now, these are the 2 questions you'll be faced with. So we ask for a CV and an application form covering letter, that's standard. And then these are the 2 questions that we ask for candidates to complete as part of the assessment form. So what I'd like you to do is just work in groups, maybe come up with for each of these questions some bullet points or sentences or phrases that you think you might include for each of these. So the first one is, why would you like to work in a digital profession? So we normally tailor that question to the job title that you're applying for. So it might be, why would you like to be a data scientist? Why would you like to be a software developer? Why would you like to be a project manager? For this exercise, I've kept it as just digital, so we can have a think about why you want to do that. It comes back to what we said at the beginning about passion. And the second question, which is surprisingly hard for people, so just pretend you want to work at NHS Digital. Why do you think people might want to work at NHS Digital, and how might you answer that question? So if you could just get yourself groups of 4 or 5, and we'll just have a few minutes to think about that.
I really was taking it.
Like maybe that means that you can work within, you can do many different things in that one job. So I'm going to jump in there as well. I just I think in a way.
Going for a job,
Yeah.
it's still to say.
Yeah, if there's a job that pays 10 grand more than the other, I will go for 10 grand more than the other.
I felt like a change grasp on
I guess it'd be good knowing that you already know some patient records like the charity.
Manufacturer job satisfaction. So it's not as practical when you walk the live practice like contact.
We have like online
What's that website? I thought that was the only one going.
I know but it's
Well, I mean, basically there is a security problem. They'll tell you 70 years it's very, what other websites do a lot better is they create a community around certain positions, feedback and expression, going online with that sense of being quite isolated. Yeah, basically,
Yeah, it was like this. It was a group, lots of groups. It was like military and stuff like that. You can get it online.
yeah, that's what we really are. Like, kids I know that's so much about hacking and shit.
Yeah.
That's why you've got to be so much creepy Russian gangsters. Oh yeah.
And they didn't even mind it. So yeah, within like 3 minutes. I know, that's what I mean.
it's actually more instances. It's like
it's got to be a driver there somewhere. So that's really good. So can how do they reflect? With that,
least intense exercises that we see. So I was taking some kids who were doing weightlifting and the same as everyone else, but it's actually like that. What motivates me in trouble enjoying.
And how does that feed into this role? It's again a question like when you look at whether it's problem solving, digital and when you look at digital, I'm really creative and I love fast-paced environments and digital, and you know, there's always new developments, just, you know, it's always moving at a rate, if not engaging, and I love that to see myself in that environment, you know, because I've had a time when I worked in like that, you know, that's what, rather than, so, you know, the temptation to be very, but yeah, talking to what you find, you know, this is something I think you know, take the environment to like, what you think about, is it the more, you know, positive analytical side of things, or is it the library, you know, what is it that you wish, is that trying to so it's actually quite difficult to it might help to be a bit more authentic.
So what I'd like to do is just concentrate on each question at a time. So one person from each table. Do you want to tell me what you thought about for the first question?
We thought that it's a growing industry, so there's like lots of opportunity, probably like thinking of just as competitive as other industries, but we probably have more variety.
Next table. So one person want to give us something.
We did like lots of them, or just one?
Anything you'd like to share for the top question?
For the top one, we had quite a few, but I'm not going to say them all.
That's fine, yeah. What's your favourite?
The favourite one was personal development, I guess, because of it being quite limitless in the things that you can do, transfer your skills into, you're able to grow into sort of everything.
It's like the chance to be creative and learn new things, like suit your personality.
This table at the front.
Yeah, yours was very similar, wasn't it? Being able to help as many people as possible, but in a creative and a very modern way of doing so.
Quite like how the digital sector like facilitates creativity, and that's can be appealing, you know.
Yeah.
We said that it was like it's a growing and evolving industry, so like you're learning something almost every day where things change, where things adapt. You're not going to be sort of stuck in the same job because everything's always changing, so you get to carry on learning and developing as you go.
Yeah. Cool. So I put down a few keywords. Something we often see in answer to this question. And this could be relevant for actually lots of sectors or any sort of big companies. So looking at innovation, using buzzwords like agile, I think you covered that last week. Even just mentioning working in an agile way. Looking to improve, technology is always improving, it's there to improve quality. Development, technology, thinking about end users. A few people mentioned about creativity. Who are you developing that for? So it's thinking about your end users in that. Products, technology is all about creating. That could be a website, it could be an app, it could be some mobile wearable tech. Fast growing, we heard fast paced, we heard that from quite a few groups, and that's something really important as well. So these questions are often tricky because people say, what's the right answer? There's no right answer, but it has to be explained. So the word why, if you ever see why, it's looking for an explanation. But there are some wrong answers, and we've got a few examples of some of the things that we've seen in answer to this question that are quite interesting. So the top one, so it was a job for a software developer, and they started with, I would like to be a business analyst because, so nice copy and paste job there. So that scored 0. If you're going to copy and paste, do it with a bit of intelligence and change the beginning bit. Data science turns me on. That was my highlight from this year's application forms. Lovely, but maybe not appropriate for an application.
We've had worse.
Sometimes we see, why do you want to work in this profession? Well, I've got a degree in it. That's great and that really helps, but you've obviously got some good experience there. You've got those skills already. Tell me about those. I can see you've got a degree in it and that's great, but tell me what you did. Another common thing we get for these questions is not answering the question. People use this text box to tell us how great they are. And there is some lovely things in there, but it's not actually answering the question, so it's really difficult to actually score someone on that. There's a lot of other chances that you'll get to shine and show more skills, but for these specific questions, we're looking for an answer to that question.
We use it as well for a lot of what can we do for you as an organisation, and we are interested in what we can do for you, but it's that sort of outlining it. Well, you can give me a great career, you can give me this, you can give me that, where are we going? I know we're employing you to help us as well, and the balance sometimes really comes off in that.
It's a bit both.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
So if we just go back to the other question, so we'll go back the other way. How do you want to work for NHS Digital? You can make this up. But what sort of things do you think we might be looking for? Start table at the back.
Okay, so we'd want to work for NHS Digital because we'd want to be able to help others have different ways to access different versions of healthcare, like the online prescription service or even booking doctor appointments online. We'd also like to work on improving the website cybersecurity and their web sources that they have available for them.
Great, like that.
It said that the NHS is such an important sort of service and like resource for so many people in this country. Anything that can be done to help save time, money, access, anything like that would be sort of a good use of our creativity, knowledge and time.
Back table.
It would be a rewarding working environment.
Yeah.
Ours is like similar to that as well, because we see the NHS as such a national accomplishment. It would probably give you quite a good sense of pride working in something, especially as it links so many people as well across the country.
You can highlight horizontal structure being the amount of different areas you've got in the NHS, you really be able to find the role that suits you or niche.
Yeah.
So,
It's kind of similar to thinking about time and accessibility. We have that wanting to make it no maintenance for the staff, for the patients that access the website, but then also for staff as well. So like things are on the computer all the time.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's great. So we've done similar again of sort of what we've seen in answer to this question. I think we touched on quite a lot of these. So using technology to save money, thinking about patients, efficiency, big data. It's a big company, lots of stuff. Your tech can have a really big impact on other people, and also big change. We're trying to do a bit of a revolution here with technology in healthcare. And, there's a lot of companies that you can do a lot of change, but this is big scale stuff. You can talk to your friends and your parents about what you've done, and they'll actually sort of be able to see the benefit themselves. So again, we've seen some bad answers to this question. That first bullet point is written exactly how it was. Just 3 words in answer to that question. No capital I, no capital NHS. So not the best. Some people tell us about their family work in the NHS, and that's great, but it doesn't answer the question. It means you might have seen firsthand some of the challenges, but you need to sort of explain that a little bit. Third one, I want to be part of the NHS. Now this is a tricky one because we get this quite a bit. We are part of the NHS, and that's a really big thing, and a lot of the reasons why people work for us, particularly me as well, is they want to be part of the NHS. But the question is, why do you want to work for NHS Digital? That's the company we are, that's who we're sifting for. So we're looking at an answer to why you want to be part of NHS Digital. And I think a lot of you got a good mix of those there as well. Again, we get the I am brilliant because. You probably are, but it's not answering the question. So just always bear in mind the question there. You'll help further my career. This is something we see a lot, and it's nice to see, like you said about breadth of jobs. That's a really nice thing to see. But sometimes that's the only sort of information we get in answer to that question. It's what you can do for me, as Jenny said, is, well, what do you want to do for other people? And I think that's something you'll see more in the public sector. We're looking at why you want to be part of the public sector. Because it is challenging being part of the public sector. You get funding and your job changes at the last minute. You're always doing different things. So it's just to sort of see, you know, how you might deal with that and what are your other reasons for wanting us. We know you all want a career. I want a career as well. But why this place in particular? So I know that's quite a tricky exercise, but everyone did really well considering you might not be interested in NHS Digital at all. But you could answer the question by having a bit of a chat and a bit of a think about what that means. One point I'd just add is about sort of the wording of interview questions. I've done quite a bit of recruitment, and I've been in a room with people agonising over one sentence of how to phrase a question, having sort of a half-hour debate about how to phrase one question for an interview. So every word is there for a reason. So it's why do you want to work for NHS Digital? So just always reread the question. I think we've had this drummed into us since school, but reading the question becomes really, really important, especially in recruitment. Because the laws around recruitment are really dull, but you can only score what you see. So you have to be, and you can only score against that question. So I can't give marks for anything that is lovely but doesn't answer the question. So just a bit of a talk about what you can do for getting into a digital career. I mean, this is a great first step, and you'll be able to put on your CV that you've completed this. So it's a full course, isn't it? And I think you were selected, you applied.
Yeah, there's an application process.
Applied to do it, so you've already gone through an application process to do this, so you must have already demonstrated some passion for doing that. There's quite a lot of free online courses now. The Open University have got some really good free courses. Some of them are a few hours, some of them are a little bit longer. And there's all sorts on there. And so that could be something just to look at. You don't get a qualification as such, but you can say that you completed an online course. Any webinars that are out there, also like the British Computer Society. I think you can join up as like just an honorary member rather than a paying member. You often have access to their webinars and their talks as well. And Leeds Digital Festival, I can't remember when that is, and I meant to check before I came.
Usually the last week of April and the first week of May, so I was going to put something on the Resource Centre about that actually. It's the biggest of its kind, isn't it, in the UK at the time?
Yeah, they run a lot of events, and they're doing a hackathon in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Things like that are great, and there's even more going on with Leeds Digital Festival. Even just to meet, I think you get to meet employers, other companies will put on sort of free events. We've done some free events before in that as well. So things like that are really good, and if you can get involved in them, that's really interesting. Shadowing, this is really easy once you're in a company to go and say, oh, can I just go and shadow a colleague for a little bit. There might be people in this university who work in IT, in projects, in service. They might be happy to give you an hour of their time to show you what their job is. So universities have a lot of business support staff running underneath them on top of all the lectures and the teaching provided. There's a lot of business skills, so there might be something you could get involved in just by shadowing some people who work at the university. Work experience, any work experience is good. I worked in shops, which I hated, but I got some good customer service skills from that. I also worked in a pharmacy for a Saturday job, and I learned how important confidentiality was. So there's a lot of different skills you can get just from working in a bar, in a shop. Admin is always a good one, any admin you can do, because it will show that you've used work packages, you've worked in an office environment. I'd say the most challenging thing about people going through the university to a graduate scheme is learning about office politics. That is the strangest thing about going into the workplace. So having experienced that before, that can really help. And just how you interact with people at different levels. You might get a chance to supervise people as well. We see a lot of applications and we ask often about teamwork, and examples people use are societies that they've been in and any sort of team challenges they've done. So this might be part of charity work as well. But any societies at university, I was in the Punk Society at university, we didn't do a lot of events, but there's a lot of other societies that you can get involved in. Even just organising events or doing communications or helping to launch a website for a society, for example. You know, that's all good experience, and it's digital as well. Volunteer work, I've seen this a couple of times in application forms, and I thought it was a really good idea. I had not thought of this one. But helping maybe older generations with their digital skills, it's really easy for us, we've grown up with it. You try teaching my mum how to use a computer, it's challenging at times. But there's a lot of places like libraries, they do these free courses, and they need volunteers to help. So if you could go and share some of your digital knowledge with those people, it's good experience anyway, working with people, and it's showing the sort of, you know, digital skills as well. You might not think it's that challenging for you, but actually for them it could be a massive, massive change. Also, social media is massive. We talked about LinkedIn, but a lot of people do blogs, have good followers through those. There's all sorts now that you could document your own journeys, and you could talk about what you've done at the DigitalLEAP event. You know, just keeping that presence there, it's quite a nice thing to do, and it helps with sort of communication skills as well. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about interviews and assessment centres. So I understand you've got a mock assessment centre next week, so I'm hoping that some of this will be useful and we can put it into practice next week. We had that question earlier, why do you want this job? And it does seem really obvious, but it's sometimes it's quite hard to answer unless you fully understand the role and that company. You can have a think about what they might ask. And also you can take notes into interviews. I've interviewed a lot of people who brought in a pad of paper with some notes on examples of really generic things like teamwork, communication, leadership, and they brought those notes in with them. And that's fine, and a lot of people don't use them, but they're there as a bit of a comfort blanket. So you know that you've written an example on this. So even just having it with you can be quite nice, because you can think, well, whatever they ask, I've already written something that might be quite helpful. It also shows to me that you're prepared, you've thought about it, and you're organised as well. There's always a chance at the end of an interview to ask the employer questions. You might not actually have any. It might be all quite obvious from the job application what you're doing. But think of something to ask, and it could be as simple as, you know, what's the culture of the organisation, what's your approach to training, what's it like to move around the organisation, but just showing that you've prepared a question or two to take with you. Again, it just shows that you're prepared and you've been thinking about the role a little bit. We've talked about this quite a lot, values and behaviours. So we can't recruit based on your experience in digital, because not many people come to us with that experience, and that's fine. But what we do recruit on is values and behaviours. And I think a lot of companies do this as well. And they're normally on the website, they're often on the actual job advert where they say these are our values and we look for people who show these values. So it's normally really easy to research what those are, because that's what you're more likely to get at an assessment centre for a graduate role rather than an experienced role. Often, this maybe not so much assessment centres, but interviews often ask for a presentation nowadays. A lot of people will ask for the slides to be submitted in advance for your interview, and they'll project them for you. There are times when that technology doesn't work. So in order to just keep yourself calm, it's good to often take paper copies with you of those slides if you're doing a presentation, just so you've got that backup, and if the technology fails, you're not going to panic. And it's just there to help you a little bit. So anything you wanted to add? Preparation?
Preparation, I mean, this comes more into the assessment centres, which we'll go over, but if you're asked to bring your ID documentation with you, bring it. We're not asking for no good reason, we want it. You know, and when it comes to interviewing, it goes back to answering the question. Really listen, you can ask to hear the question twice. We don't do that at all. It's really understandable that someone wants to hear it twice. You know, I've even had people say, have I answered that question? And I don't know how everyone feels about that, but sometimes you go, no, I don't actually know what you just said to me. You wouldn't say that, but that gives them the opportunity to probe a little bit more you know, accept the probes and listen to why they're asking you another question. But yeah, that's about it.
So Maria talked a bit about assessment centres. For yourself, that's really important. I think that was a really good analogy of the apprentice. We don't want to see people fighting like they are in the apprentice and making each other cry. That's not really what we're looking for. So just be yourself. You might be exactly what we're looking for. Obviously within boundaries, we've seen some bad language and bad manners. Obviously don't want to see that. So be the best version of yourself is what I would say.
And like Maria says, you are being assessed when you're in there the whole time. It really is true that, you know, the assessors are walking around and they're paying attention. You know, if you do swear, if you do let your guard down, that professionalism slips, someone will notice, and it might not be on a score sheet, but we are recruiting on behaviours and values, and if they don't go down, people can avoid that. Rather than an interview at that stage.
As Jenny said, bring any documents with you that you're asked to. Any recruiter will ask for ID at some point. It just means you don't have to come back to our office to give us the ID at a later date. So we do ask for it because it means we can process your application really quickly, which you want and we want as well. Listen to any instructions on the day. You're often rotating around different activities. We'll go for an interview in one room and then task in another. Just make sure you're in the right place at the right time and listen. But there will be people, we always have marshals around to help people and put them in the right place. But just ask if you're a bit lost, but do listen as much as you can. So there was a reason we did that activity in teams, because that's something you'll see at assessment centres, and you'll probably see that next week when you do your mock assessment centre. Think about how you acted, just reflect on how you were in that group, and did you encourage other people, and did you contribute, and did you feel like you were working well as a team in that group? How awkward was it when I asked someone to speak from each team? Some people don't like that at all. That might happen at an assessment centre. You might just have to nominate someone on the spot to stand up and talk. So just be prepared to be asked a direct question for those. Also talk to the candidates. Obviously it shows that you're a sociable person, but also it helps ease nerves a little bit as well. Everyone's in the same boat. You're often not competing for the same role. There might be 7 candidates and 7 jobs. So we're just trying to see who the best people are. And we're quite lucky if we saw 8 really good people, but we only have 5 jobs, we might be able to wiggle that up a little bit. So even if there are a set number of jobs, there might be some room if you've got some really, really good candidates. But it's just nice to talk to other people, see where they've come from, what their background is. And when you're talking, it might just remind you of some of the skill that you've done or some of the work that you've done as well. So this is my last little bit around top tips. So manners is a massive thing. We see our absence of manners quite a bit. It comes back to always being assessed at the assessment centre from the minute you walk in the door. It's really nice to have, you know, people being polite and really clear with us. And also we get a lot of people chasing us, what's the status of my application? There's a lot of stages and there's a lot of things to go through. And that's absolutely fine for people to just check where the application form is. But do it in a nice way. We often get people who submit an application form. Was it about that one? It's like, submit an application form at 11 o'clock at night, was chasing at 9 o'clock the next morning to say, where is my application? What have you done with it? It's not the best start. We actually can't mark people down for that, but it's just not a good start. And we do remember the bad names.
Yeah, I mean, and this bit goes from the very beginning, like Jill says, you're talking about an application stage here. If we're getting emails from you, you know, write them really nicely. You know, we all actually take a lot of effort when you work in an office to make your emails really pleasant, because we all know they can be taken the wrong way. We've all had a text and looked at it twice. Think about how I'm reading it as well. You know, and it's all about that understanding and, oh, it's going to take a while, but a little bit of it. And really, yeah, just trying to be understanding that everything's done really quick, and I shouldn't have to tell you there's 200 applications and for distance a little bit, just to be, nice and everything. But it just starts from that very beginning all the way to the end. If you do write an email, put the job at the top. We're not just recruiting for you and your one role, trying to make it,
Unfortunately, we don't know everyone's name, so
not
says,
just yet.
it's me. You know, we're not quite sure who that is. Also, people apply for multiple roles, so saying what job you've applied for, that really helps us as well. Spelling and grammar, we actually score. So as well as scoring those 2 questions, our third score is for spelling and grammar. So it is actually really important. We're not the only people who do that. And you do see some shoppers. I showed you a couple earlier. But just double check it. If it's an online form, you can copy and paste it into Word, check your spelling and grammar, and then paste it back. So at least you've got that extra check.
And we joke that if you write your first name and your last name without a capital letter at the front, we should just completely argue, but we do get it. People who, you know, they write an application and their names are all in lowercase. It's really embarrassing to read. I've got it on a spreadsheet where everyone else has done it. Yeah. So we can't do it. We love to.
Again, going back to the car example, which is absolutely perfect for answering questions. Remember to say what you did. It's really easy. I do it as well. I always say what we did as a team. We work as a team every day, and it's really, really difficult. And it's only when you're put in that situation that you're forced to think about what you did, or if you're writing an application form, what did I do? It was just a blur. We all just did all the work. And sometimes a good thing to do, you might find yourself, you'll hear yourself now in an interview saying, we did this. But just, if you want to go, just backtrack and just say at the end of the question and that you're answering, and my role was, because it's not too late to add it at the end. If you feel like we just talked about what your team did, you can go back and say, and what I did was. Make the employer aware of reasonable adjustments. It's really easy to do, but we just need to know. We know a lot of people get extra time for exams, no problem, we can do that. We can adapt tasks, we've adapted assessment centres for people's needs before. It's not a problem, but we just need to know in advance so we can plan that properly. Yeah, we've had requests for special chairs, special mouse, anything like that. So we're more than happy. As an employer, it's really important to be accommodating and get everything right. So, you know, we want to make sure that everyone's as comfortable as possible on the day.
Yeah, so on that one as well, Jill's next point feeds into this, but if you do have a reasonable adjustment, let us know straight away. Don't let us on the last day before the test, and you know, it makes it seem like we're not playing the game. We really want to be, you know, as efficient and as helpful as we possibly can, because we don't want anyone to feel left out from it.
How would you tell someone that you have a reasonable adjustment? Like if it's on an application form, is there a box to say?
No, so you would do it on your application form, and if it affected the application, it would be helpful. But if you're invited to a test, it will always say at the bottom, let us know about a reasonable adjustment, because with so many applications, we'll go through and let one feed into the other.